try to obtain this resonant sound, right? So what do? You play a lot of switching pedals, meaning shaking pedal? No?
No.
No, the fingers can shake too, but that doesn't help much. The pedal, yes. This is Steinway, right? So if you play this, it has a length of sound. No? Re, sol, re. Each sound sounds very long. No? Yeah. So shake the pedal to keep a little of halo above the notes. I'll tell you a secret about the French pianos of the beginning of the century, like Erard or Pleyel. They didn't have dampers in the top register. So they literally sounded like a harp in the top, and they had very rounded bass and middle range. It was like an organ harp combination. So at the end, when you do the, and you have the arpeggios, you have harp and organ, left hand organ, right hand harp. So in the forte piano of today, the Steinway, you have to play pedal but change it all the time. Re, sol, re, fa, re. Sorry, with my back to you.
It's okay, it's fine.
You sure you don't want to sit there? Education. Yes, like as if you're worried. Like you pump. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Another thing is that if you play the left hand alone, you hear a lot of fifths, no? Like or fourths. So if you play the left hand alone, you hear right hand alone. So in fact it's bitonal. The right hand is in G sharp minor, and the left hand is in E major. Polytonal! So if it was as it should have been when he presented it to Fauré, it would have been your tongue, you start feeling another taste. L'amertume. Comment se dit amertume en anglais?
Bitterness. Bitterness.
Bitterness. But at the beginning, merci. In the beginning is sweet. It becomes bitter once the two tonalities hug, clash, or complement. That gives that sense of complete magic beginning, because it's with harmonies that are resonating with harmonics, almost like magical. There is one stop on the organ that does that. In French it's called nasard. Is that the principal note is here, and here you hear a chord. So it gives that sense of halo to the sound. We don't hear distinctly the third and the fifth that you play, that it automatically triggers 2 octaves higher. But it enlightens or highlights the principal note. So de facto it sounds like polytonal when you play on the organ on that stop. And do you know that in the Paris Conservatory at that time, when he was a student of Fauré, all the composition students had to take organ by obligation. First of all, because it was before the separation of church and state, so most of them became mediocre composers. but earned their life as an organist in one of the 33,000 churches of France. So in fact, they taught them something for their livelihood and composition for afterlife. And it's no wonder that most of the French composers, when they write the texture on the piano, it sounds like organ, spread like that. Because when I played it in E major or in G sharp minor, it's one or the other, but combined is like, this cheese goes with that wine. And when you're a connoisseur, you go, oh, you cannot use this with that. And I don't know about it much because I don't drink, but many people who I appreciate love that combination. So this pedaling combined with this bitonal harmonies. Now the dynamic marking is pianissimo, right? So whisperato. How do you play pianissimo for 800 people? Like those sitting on the red chairs. Somebody comes at your rehearsal and sits there and says, come on, play a little more because people cannot hear at the end of the hall. Usually I answer to that, I play for the rich. The sonotone rich people who sit on the front row, and the sonotone hisses with a wireless microphone. And he reminds me to shut it down. It's paradoxically sad. The rich are old, and the young are poor. But in any case, I told you, Mademoiselle Boulanger was sitting in a circle like this when he performed it in Flores class as a student. So there's no projection of pianissimo. That's why I think that even in a concert hall, you should not try to play too soft. Because it feels like starting to play on eggs. I don't want to touch this minefield, because something is going to explode. So many of my students, when they play impressionist music, try to whisper. Don't wake up the baby. And so it goes from pianissimo to mezzo piano, and you go like, oh, it's so loud. But in fact, you should not be afraid of playing mezzo piano at the beginning, because it first breaks the ice with the audience, second with the action. And once you get used to it, you can try to play a little bit more intimate. But if you start too soft, you'll have holes, like Swiss cheese. There's one finger in the right hand that needs to play straight, is the thumb. And not like this. Because the thumb plays as a sleepy friend. He's always there, and he doesn't have to even push. But 2, 3, 2, 4, 5, they push vertically. So you want to have a thumb that drops vertically too. So you have to play with as little skin on the ivory, on the thumb, as on the vertical second finger. And not play with the thumb's arm prolongation. Yeah, you don't want to play that. You want to play like this. Higher palm position, lower wrist, straighter thumb. Other than that is natural. I know it's not to you because I demonstrated. So you can articulate the thumb and have him play by dropping it. Just like you drop the second and fourth finger, because they're anyway dropped vertically. If not, it sounds da 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 da. It's difficult to play it even then. I think you should think the thumb is this. Sounds like a horror movie. I lost my thumb, it became another second finger. Yes. Trigger it from here, very good. And the same thing, G, D, and F sharp. Yes. 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 Second thing I can tell you is the 430 seconds are not 430 seconds. They are a sextuplet. with acceleration. Yeah, 6 in 1. So there's 6 notes, but the last 4 are little accelerando. But it's not ta 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 ta. The notation is precise, the interpretation should be je ne sais quoi between the beats. Je ne sais quoi in French means and I don't know what. Rien m'habille. Marilyn Monroe used to say that she feels very well dressed when she has just Chanel No. 5 on her. It's a perfume. But she was naked. But she felt she was dressed with a parfum. So I think, and that he didn't tell me, unlike Chopin for the record, that you should think of DG not twice slower than CGD, CGCE. Play da da dee da 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 da. A little faster the 16th notes, and a little less fast the 32nd, so it becomes like an uneven sextuplet. No, because you play it on the beat. Like this. It's interesting because Ravel didn't realize that he invented minimalism. You know, minimalist piano music. Adams, Philip Glass. The pattern that keeps returning slightly differently, but constantly. It's like this. Or une barque sur l'océan. You know, here. Most composers, students of Fauré, would write the first 2 bars as an introduction. And then comes the piece with the melody, or the song. But in fact, his introduction is the piece. It's a bit like Waldstein. Accompaniment, theme, melodic material, thematic material, all in one. Here is the same. You play like water flowing. So most French teachers will tell you, vous comprenez, c'est très précis comme indication. C'est très précis. That means super precise indication. Ravel, everything he wanted is written in the score. All you have to do is recite it. Matter of fact, he attended a master class of Marguerite Long's students who played his music. So after the master class, she goes, Maître, did you enjoy the interpretation of your works by my students? And he said, on ne m'interprète pas, on me joue. That means one doesn't interpret me, one plays me. So, if you study with him, you're going to get it very harsh training. Because one half of his heritage was Swiss, and the other one was Basque, Spanish. So the clockmaker part was the Swiss. Meticulous. Even on the beach in Biarritz, he was with a 3-piece suit. The guy was peculiar. But then, he writes in the left hand on the 4th beat and the 8th beat of your second line, an arpeggio. All of a sudden, the 4/30 seconds in the right hand are watered down by this undefined tempo of the arpeggio of the German 6th. Oops, did we see German 6th? Ravel, German 6th. 1870, well, 1815, 1870, 1918. If you say a French composer, it's a German 6, I think they would have killed me. Besides, nobody calls it German 6 in Europe anyway. But it is, nevertheless, an augmented 6th. If he was so meticulous, why didn't he rhythmize that in the left hand? Because where do you place it? Do you place it on the thumb of the right hand? Do you start it or do you end it on the thumb? Do you do... Oh, in the middle? Where do you put your beard when you sleep? Under the cover, above the cover, and then you end up by dying because you cannot sleep. So where do you place that arpeggio and you cannot play anymore? It's a metaphor. Maybe it's true. I think you place it in the beginning. Yeah, so he writes an arpeggio for 3 notes on an arpeggio on 4 notes. So it's 4 against 3 rhythmically. Yeah. If you play the whole piece like this, it's really minimalist. You should try 10 minutes of that. And the audience will go, oh, genius! Mozart invented rap with the secco, recitativo seccos, and Ravel invented minimalism. But they didn't know it. It was beside themselves. If I was him, I would have written 4 notes in the arpeggio, and then everybody goes here and square it. Stravinsky likes also to put uneven superimpositions, like in Petrushka, 7 and 6. And everybody tries to organize. There must be something mystical about 2 against 3, or 3 against 4. I think it's Battersby who said that the other day. You attend the concert?
No, but he taught in the class. Talked about the theory.
And I have a student present in the studio who tells me that she hates triplets. And I say, what do you mean in triplets? She says, I prefer 16th notes or 8th notes. What is this thing, triplet, in between?
Bad part.
What?
Bad part, bad part.
Yeah, she doesn't like triplets. There's a French writer, Georges Perec, who wrote a whole novel without the letter E. Which probably in translation makes no sense. But at least the point of the story is that some composers think that some kind of rhythmic combination, more or less mathematically corresponding, is supposed to create that sense of dislocation. The drops of the water from the fountain fall at a different speed. And plop, 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 plop. But he doesn't do it on each beat. So he does it calmly for the first 3 8 notes, and then all of a sudden, which is why I told you to think of it as a sextuplet accelerando. But if you tell that the audience in your playing, then it's too much. And right now you play da da dee da 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 dee da da da. It's very ambiguous because on one side you want to be precise, and on the other side you want to sound like improvised or free flow. Or where do I place it now? In fact, you play them almost against each other, no? Yeah. If you play it constantly, you enter in trance. I hear voices, I hear sounds, I feel the drops. I think it's very soothing like that. You just play the first bar, the third bar in circles. Another thing which you notice in the writing of the French composers of that time period, Debussy as well, they have echo cells. That's what I call them. They didn't call it cell. Like the first cell is the half of the bar. Yeah, play the first half of the bar. And you replay it. And you replay it. New cell, next line. No, next line. What do? I redo it. Have you ever tried to play this piece? Deflated tire, which is without any redundancy of any repeated echo cell. Like you play this, and then you go this, and then you go, exactly. And by the time you don't play this, you play this. Basically, you reduce it by half. Try it, you'll see. It makes no sense. Times. Just one. And then, and again, continue. No, because it's the same. So you don't realize, people say in a partita, should I take the repeats? And not are you? No. It's too many people auditioning and we don't have time to hear the repeats. But then some say, in the Goldberg, I only take the first of each. Because it's half an hour. If I take both, it will be an hour. But at least they are marked repeats that you can consider retaking or not according to whatever you study to do. But you cannot do anything when the repeats are stuttered. I want to tell you how much this piece is nice. People say, can't you just say the sentence once? So usually when this is noted, the teachers should suggest to do something different the second time. La deuxième fois en écho. That's the emblem of the Conservatory of Paris interpretational philosophy. The second time, echo. Parce que c'est ennuyeux. Your people will be bored to hear it twice. And I like to say, are you bored to notice that you have a second eye? And then second ear, and second leg? No. That's why I think you should play exactly like it's written, which means the awareness of knowing that it's a repetitivity of the pattern at the micro level is a lot. The awareness. Once you're aware of it, but then you don't play differently the second repeat of it. You don't play more, you don't play it less, you don't play it slower, you don't play it faster, you don't play it with vibrato, you don't play it with ornamentation. You just play. And you notice if you take them off, the whole piece disappears. It's like, make no sense. And in fact, when you hear it, you accept it as a listener, and you're sort of like almost cradled into it. Again, something new. Again. You never think of it as a repeat, do you, when you play?
To do something else and repeat.
Because you think it's boring, or
Yeah.
or you think
I can do more because it should not sound the same.
I usually, when I was a student, I took the repeats for redemption purpose. Because I usually mess up the first time. So if there is a repeat, I have a chance to play it clean. That's the only reason I took the repeats. And then a few years ago, I was invited to a French festival, open air, 10 p.m. after they ate so much, and they drank so much pink wine, rosé. 10 p.m. concert. The audience was delightfully asleep. It's south of France with hot wind from the sea. And I played the B-flat Schubert sonata And when I got to the recapitulation, at the end to the coda, I decided that it was not meant ahead. It was not planned. I decided that it's too beautiful to play here, too nice. And I took a repeat for the entire recapitulation that doesn't exist. Besides having played twice the exposition with a repeat, which is anyway written. No wonder they didn't invite me again. But you know, it's the kind of thing that you do when you're well somewhere with somebody. Oh, I wish it doesn't stop today. I wish the sunset doesn't happen. This day is so perfect. Why does it have to end? I always think that we have a different conception when we feel or fear or you know, the repetitivity is not repeating. It's just continuously developing the thought. It's like when you say to somebody something very meaningful, usually you whisper and you repeat it, not because the other is deaf, but because you want to say it's meaningful. You know, I love you, but I really love you. And they go like, yeah, sure, you already said it. So the term of endearment almost always calls for a repeat. But the people like me who doesn't know how to explain something, they say, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. So sometimes the repeat is like, you know what I mean. It's 2 against 3, 3 against 4, whatever. So perhaps the repeat is the chance of redemption to make the 3 against 4 fit between the arpeggio and the right hand. When you start it, do you hear it in your head? Like right now? And when you play it, does it match? Or does it go like, oh, shit. It's too loud, it's too soft, it's too dry, this keyboard is too heavy, there are too many people. It's only between Ravel and me. I don't want to play in front of everybody something so intimate. Yes, and then where did you see the crescendo? Oh, nice. But you know what happens? Rhythmic acceleration. We were cradled into the one harmony with a bar, and all of a sudden, it's one harmony and 8th note. And all of a sudden, it's like... So the acceleration gives you the feeling of busyness, but it's not, shouldn't be busy, it should be just... At best, like the French Jeux of Jean-Marie Daré. That means pearled play. The fingers drop like pearls. That used to be the horror of the Paris Conservatoire. A pearl necklace, broken and thrown on a marble staircase. Try that bar, you ready? No, this one. Can you not do crescendo? Can you not sink in pedal? Each 8th note pedal and shake. An 8th note, down for the next 8th note, up for one 8th note, and down the other 8th note, right? If not, you would have done. So I want to hear the connection. Da-da-da-da-da, on the 5/4. And left hand substitution on each 8th note. Substitution galore. Legato du doigt, finger legato, finger pedal. pipes connected to it. Where you pump to put the air while you play for the weddings. So you don't want to put the pedal like whoosh, whoosh, like you're putting air in the piano. You want to shake, 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 shake. Pedal, pedal, pump, harp. That's very nice sound. Continue. Surprised for not anticipating rela rela, upper wrist, straight fingers, upper rotation. Rela 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 rela. Because it's so straight, so stretched, meaning, so you have to have straight fingers. Go ahead, play rela rela. DA, DA. Is it here? Yeah. Don't do the side thing, but do the above, the upper rotation. Yes. So you have to open your elbow, straighten your fingers, stretch, and just play with the tips touching. Yes! Laki laki. Except it takes 30 seconds to prepare it. And here it's connected. Speaking of Ravel himself, he toured in America in the mid-30s himself and played his pieces in concerts in the States. And the reviewers used to say, "What a pity Mr. Ravel had to play his own music." They wish he practiced, but he didn't. And he was such a heavy smoker of Gitane, French filterless cigarettes, which he couldn't purchase in America. So in the boat trip and the train trips in the States, during the tour, he kept on stage with him, his carry-on little suitcase with all the packs of Gitane, being deadly afraid that somebody will steal it and he'll never be able to smoke before he returns in France a month later. In other words, he smoked but didn't practice his music. And the people writing the reviewers, "What a pity Mr. Ravel played his music." Because they heard it played so beautifully by other pianists. So he probably didn't play it very well. But anyway, it's not about him, it's about you today. Now I think that if you play an anticipation of the elbow up and the fingers straight, and you prepare it going into it, you won't be surprised. Yes. Most of the mistakes are a result of an ill-conceived gesture, meaning too late. You have to mentally anticipate the next section and already the gesture that you'll do for it in the cognitive memory of it. But if you try to adjust to it, to catch up, it's too late. Then you go like, oh, or again, or I don't usually do that there. It happens to all of us. I never make a mistake on that spot. Why did I miss it at the exam? I've never heard that from any student. That was a humor. So it's all about anticipating the gesture. This time you have 8 times echo cell. So you should escape the left hand C sharp, scratch the finger, so that it leaves immediately room for the thumb of the second 32nd. Yeah, but you don't want to hear it. Pizzicato and hard. Because you drop it too much. You should just scratch it. Like this. Don't put any weight into it. Just scratch it. Oh, it changed. Minimalism! Have you played China Gate by Adams?
No, I played the last one.
The one in A minor? From memory? I've heard the pianist played from memory. To the dismay of my dear colleagues. Because you're not used to hear that music. We like Chopin. Ravel. Bartok. But not beyond. How long have you studied this piece? Same as you, right? Do you know when he indicates in French indications what it means? Yeah, or other of those kind. Like un peu, it's a little. Like céder légèrement, it's slightly give up the tempo, slightly. Basically, it means nothing. Meaning, don't move of the tempo. But because you're musical, you'll do something, but you'll refuse it to yourself. It's like the conductor saying, and the musicians go, not too much, not too much. So that's why we have, you almost stopped. No, you stopped at all. You shouldn't stop at all. It's like merge in traffic in the next highway. Because if you stop and start at the entrance of the highway, you have an accident. So it's a you'll do something, but it will be a hint rather than an exaggeration and organized ritenuto, which subdivides the rhythmic ritenuto already written by the dotted eighth and then the 16th here. So it's it's already done rhythmically. Yeah, I get another indication I wanted to ask you also about. Yeah, what do you think about that wrong note by Ravel? La, instead of yes. So why would a genius composer write a note that doesn't exist on the keyboard? I think Fauré should have taught him that at the lesson. He premiered it. You should transpose the whole piece half step up so that you can play the A as the real note. So he does the same thing in the Barque sur l'Océan. Do you know that piece? The boat on the ocean? It's like... So it's not because of the instrument. So he didn't care that he was missing a note. Instead of an octave, he plays it 7th, saying to himself, it's so low nobody will hear the difference because the vibrations are so high. He could have done. So I was writing here that, like a miroir d'une barque sur l'océan, lowest possible note, G sharp. So do you hear it as a wrong note when you play it? You don't hear it as a G sharp that couldn't be? Because it sounds like a dissonance, what I meant.
No, it just sounds good.
Oh, it sounds good. I thought it sounds like a seventh instead of an octave, no?
Sounds very.
Because does he do it in any other octave? Like when you play this. And it goes to G sharp. And then. G sharp. So he didn't transpose it to fit the lowest note. I mean, he knew that the lowest note is in A. Because sometimes you think, why did I write pieces in F minor for F sharp minor, you know? Most of the time for the other instruments is the limitation in question of the instrument's range. The piano has such apparently limitless compared to the other instruments, but still missing one note. Have you seen Bösendorfer Imperials?
Has 3 keys lower than the left.
It must be a Bösendorfer.
So I try to practice one time.
How did it sound? With a G sharp? Did you play G sharp? Or did you play A?
I played it lower than
The G sharp, right? Instead of the A.
the F. I played it.
Oh, you played the F! So, here is above, and he decided to go beyond. Why is it so untuned that the F sharp sounds like the G sharp? Honestly, the lowest ones alone sound like very low. And usually they're consonant if you play the thumb with the octave that corresponds. You know what I mean?
Sounds
No. Fauré was deaf, but not Ravel. It's true. Like Beethoven was deaf, Fauré also became deaf. Not something everybody knows. Because generally nobody knows about Fauré anyway, except some songs for accompaniment. Have you heard any music by Fauré for piano?
Okay.
Like a nocturne? Perhaps not. Oh, nice. Yeah, well, it's nocturnes like Barcarolle. It's one of those things, they all go to the same title. Now, the reason I mention this is because when you play Nocturne by Fauré, it's a very much of a chosen landscape. Yeah. And I think that, unfortunately, I couldn't ask him why he wrote some pieces in such a key, because I wasn't born when he died. But I asked Dutilleux why he wrote his sonata in F sharp. 50 years after he wrote it, a year before he died. It's kind of a silly question to ask, Herr Beethoven, warum haben Sie komponiert die F-Moll Sonate in F-Moll? You speak German. Ask Beethoven, why did he write the Appassionata in F minor? But unfortunately, he didn't tell me this time. But Dutilleux told me, because he was a living composer. Do you know his sonata for piano? Henri Dutilleux? the French contemporary, so to say, no more because he died, contemporaries, which means at the same time living. He told me it's because when he composed it in 1944, when he was a student, he quoted another piece. And I remember with my teenager daughter, we were there, waiting the revelation. There must be a reason. What is the piece you quoted, Maître? And he said after 1 minute, I don't remember. So close, yet so far. So his sonata is in F sharp minor, and it starts with the descending third for the whole theme, for the whole piece actually. I was teaching chamber music coaching, the F sharp minor drum scherzo from the sonata for violin. So I called him on the phone and I said, would it be that you quoted the scherzo of the Brahms sonata for violin? And he said, Geneviève played it with her partner, violinist, when I was composing it. Geneviève was his wife to be, for whom he wrote and dedicated the piano sonata. She premiered it in the 50s. So he quoted the Brahms scherzo that he was tired of hearing his fiancée wife at the time, not yet, rehearsing with her partner violinist. So the reasons might hold on very little knowledge. And so here you could say, Monsieur Ravel, quand même. You could move your piece semitone and obtain the real notes instead of this dissonance. What is that? It sounds like it's not the right note. But it didn't seem to be disturbing you as a dissonance, right? Is it because it's written? So when you played on the real piano that had the G sharp, you played F sharp on the Bösendorfer Imperial. You said you played one lower. Why?
That's the lowest key. So I just want to keep
I think it must be a ledger line reading question, no?
I tried all the keys.
And none worked? Perhaps sort of tune in the bottom that all of them don't sound G sharp. Or all of them sound, they all sound G sharp, even if you play A or F. I think I tortured you enough, but I really enjoyed it. Thank you, young man. Let's applaud you.